What if the boldest championship defense in football decided to destroy its own backline overnight, stripping away every single veteran safety before handing the entire NFC North title defense to an unproven free agent and a green first-round rookie? In one ruthless offseason, Ryan Poles and Dennis Allen purged their proven secondary leadership, gambling that rookie phenomenon Dillon Thieneman and position convert Coby Bryant could build a silent communication bond or risk leaving all-pro corner Jaylon Johnson completely stranded on an island while Jared Goff, Jordan Love, and Caleb Williams hunt for the single-blown coverage nightmare that will either ignite a Super Bowl run or trigger an absolute defensive catastrophe. The modern NFL front office is an unfeeling, cold-blooded spreadsheet engine where loyalty goes to die. But even by the icy metrics of Chicago, the total annihilation of Halas Hall's veteran secondary felt like an unprecedented act of corporate execution. For 2 seasons, the back end of this defense operated with the clockwork precision of a Swiss watch. Kevin Byard was the undisputed brain, a seasoned, venerable, all-pro safety who functioned as a secondary quarterback, adjusting shell coverages on the fly, barking out pre-snap checks, and snatching momentum with a league-leading turnover appetite. Beside him stood Jaquan Brisker, the enforcer whose violent downhill strikes and raw emotional pulse gave the Bears their terrifying physical edge. Together, they formed an ironclad insurance policy that locked down the deep third, protected aggressive cornerbacks, and allowed Chicago to dictate terms to every elite offense in the conference. They were the cultural anchor of a defense built to win now, beloved by the fan base and deeply respected in the locker room. Then came the spring of 2026, and with the flick of a pen, Ryan Poles deleted the foundation of his entire secondary. There was no heartfelt contract negotiation, no gradual transition plan, and no sentimental grace period. When the market reset, Poles drew a cold line in the sand, opting to let Byard pack his bags for New England while shutting down extension talks with Brisker, letting both pillars of the defensive scheme walk out the door for absolutely nothing. To the outside football world, it looked like sheer madness, a self-inflicted wound delivered to a roster sitting directly inside its Super Bowl window. Inside the executive suites, however, it was a calculated purge designed to purge high price tags and replace aging legs with game-breaking elite speed. Dennis Allen and the front office didn't just want a solid secondary, they wanted an explosive, cheap coverage-erasing unit that could outrun the fastest deep-threat wideouts in the division. The sheer audacity of the gamble sent shockwaves through the organization. Stripping away 2 veteran starters in a single offseason is a massive risk under normal circumstances, but doing so while holding the target-painted back of an NFC North crown is a terrifying high-wire act. The modern passing game is built specifically to punish inexperienced safeties, using motion, play action, and subtle eye manipulation to crack open the exact deep voids that Byard used to plug by memory. By tearing down that veteran safety net, Chicago essentially told the rest of the league that they were willingly walking into the fire. The entire back end of a championship-caliber defense was stripped down to the bare studs and handed over to Coby Bryant, a former third-round cornerback transitioning to safety, and Dillon Thieneman, a 21-year-old rookie who hadn't taken a single snap of professional football. This wasn't just a basic roster shuffle, it was a high-stakes, all-in poker move that challenged the fundamental philosophy of roster construction. The defensive line can generate all the pass rush pressure in the world, and the cornerbacks can play elite press coverage. But if the safeties fail to diagnose root concepts or misread a quarterback's eyes for a fraction of a second, the entire defensive structure collapses instantly. Ryan Poles stripped away the ultimate safety blanket, trusting that his scouting vision was superior to proven NFL production. The cold corporate calculation had been made, the veterans were gone, and the clock was officially ticking on a massive, high-drama gamble that would either cement Poles as a roster-building genius or ignite the most catastrophic defensive collapse in recent franchise history. If you fire up the draft tape, turn off the stadium audio, and blast heavy, distorted modern beats over the film, Dillon Thieneman doesn't look like an ordinary rookie safety. He looks like a human missile created in a high-tech football laboratory. Selected 25th overall out of Oregon by way of Purdue, Thieneman arrived in Chicago possessing the kind of athletic profile that turns scout team notebooks into absolute gospel. Standing 6 feet tall and weighing 201 pounds, he detonated the NFL Combine with a blistering 4.35 40-yard dash and a jaw-dropping 41-inch vertical jump. But raw track numbers mean nothing if a player lacks the instincts to diagnose a play in a split second, and that is precisely where Thieneman's tape transforms from standard prospect footage into pure poetry. Study his college film closely, and you witness a defender who operates as if he's plugged directly into the opposing quarterback's headset. During his legendary true freshman campaign at Purdue, where he snagged 6 interceptions and racked up over 100 tackles, Thieneman routinely erased deep halves of the field by simply anticipating route trees before the receivers even made their breaks. Transferring to Oregon only elevated his profile, showing off a terrifying downhill closing speed from single high safety alignments that allowed him to erase chunk plays in the blink of an eye. When a quarterback drops back and looks toward the post, Thieneman reads the shoulder turn, plants his back foot into the turf, and triggers downhill like he was shot out of a cannon. His ball skills are absurdly natural. He tracks the spiral through traffic, high points the football at its apex, and instantly transforms from a defensive back into a dangerous ball carrier in open space. He possesses that rare, unteachable geometry, the ability to take flawless angles toward the sideline, cutting off explosive plays that would ordinarily go for 60 yards and leaving receivers clutching at thin air. Yet, for all the electrifying highlight reels and jaw-dropping combine metrics, stepping into the starting single-high safety role as a rookie in the NFL is widely considered the most brutal trial by fire in modern sports. College quarterbacks read half the field and throw into predefined windows. NFL quarterbacks are cold-blooded grandmasters who use every micro-movement of their bodies to deceive young defensive backs. Dillon Thieneman isn't going to be playing against Big Ten or Pac-12 signal callers anymore. He is stepping directly into a divisional gauntlet featuring Jared Goff and Jordan Love, 2 veteran quarterbacks who devour over-eager rookie safeties for breakfast. This is where the terrifying, high-wire tension of the entire Bears enterprise reveals itself. In Ben Johnson's high-powered Detroit offense or Matt LaFleur's surgical Green Bay scheme, play-action pass design is engineered specifically to exploit the natural aggression of aggressive young safeties. When Jared Goff fake hands off on a heavy bootleg, he isn't just trying to freeze the linebackers. He is staring directly into the soul of the deep safety, using a subtle head fake, a pump shoulder, or a localized eye shift to bait a rookie into taking one step toward the line of scrimmage. That single step, just 24 inches of miscalculated momentum, is all an elite quarterback needs. In the fraction of a second it takes Thieneman to recover, a deep post route slips right over his head into the vacant secondary, turning an aggressive downhill trigger into a 70-yard blown coverage touchdown on national television. The NFL learning curve for a single high safety is merciless, offering zero margin for error and zero room to breathe. One false read, 1 second of hesitation, or 1 split-second lapse in eye discipline transforms a first-round prodigy into the villain of the week's film review. Chicago is banking its entire defensive strategy on the belief that Thieneman's football EQ will transcend his rookie status, allowing him to play fast without falling for the smoke and mirrors of veteran quarterbacking. They are asking a 21-year-old kid to be the ultimate eraser, standing alone in the deep third of the field with no safety net behind him, knowing that every single snap is a trap waiting to be sprung. While Dillon Thieneman brings raw athletic dynamicism to the single-high alignment, an NFL safety tandem cannot function on athletic tools alone. It requires an intellectual center point, a master air traffic controller who orchestrates the entire operation before the ball is even snapped. Enter free agent acquisition Coby Bryant. Originally drafted out of Cincinnati as an outside cornerback before transitioning to safety during his tenure in Seattle, Bryant arrives in Chicago carrying a fascinating, multi-layered scouting footprint. He possesses elite pure coverage instincts, sharp diagnostic speed, and the fluid hips of a perimeter corner. Yet, as he steps into Halas Hall to assume a full-time, every-down starting role, the front office is asking him to undergo the ultimate baptism by fire. transitioning from a secondary cover piece to the absolute vocal authority of a championship-caliber defense. Seattle Seahawks. Break down the game tape, and you see a player who thrives on reading route progressions and triggering on the football. During his time in Seattle's secondary, Bryant proved he could handle versatile coverage assignments, showing off natural ball skills, smooth transition speed, and a physical willingness to drop into the box and tackle in space. When the ball is in the air, his cornerback routes take over. He turns his head, plays through the receiver's hands, and regularly generates game-altering takeaways. But the fundamental question haunting Chicago's coaching staff isn't whether Coby Bryant can play pass defense, it's whether he can command the room. Kevin Byard wasn't just a safety. He was the defensive mainframe, a veteran who processed offensive pre-snap shifts in real time, barked out checks to the linebackers, adjusted shell disguises, and ensured all 11 defenders operated on a single synchronized string. Seattle Seahawks +1. Replacing that level of cerebral vocal command is a monumental task for a free agent arrival who is still solidifying his own operational voice at the position. When an opposing offense breaks the huddle, lines up in a heavy 12 personnel package, and then suddenly shifts 2 wide receivers across the formation in motion, the entire secondary's rules change in a fraction of a second. If Bryant fails to instantly recognize the adjustment, bark out the correct coverage check, and reset the checks down the line, the entire defensive structure becomes completely compromised before the quarterback even receives the snap. He cannot afford to spend 3 seconds processing his own alignment. He must process the entire field, correct the rookie standing beside him, and project absolute, unshakable authority across the entire back end. Reddit. This is where the entire narrative pivots from individual talent to structural chemistry. An NFL secondary is not simply a collection of talented individuals running isolated assignments. It is an organic, telepathic unit that relies almost entirely on non-verbal communication. In a deafening stadium environment with 60,000 screaming fans, verbal checks become nearly impossible. Bryant and Thieneman cannot rely on loud pre-snap calls. They must instantly build a silent language, a complex system of subtle hand gestures, shared eye contact, micro-taps on the hip, and instant recognition of spatial leverage. They must learn to read each other's body language so intimately that when Bryant rotates downward into the robber position, Thieneman instinctively rolls to the deep middle without a single word being spoken. The clock on building this non-verbal synergy is ticking down with terrifying speed. Preseason snaps are fleeting, joint practice reps against opposing schemes are limited, and the regular season wait for no one. If Bryant and his rookie partner are still learning how to translate each other's non-verbal cues when September arrives, modern offensive coordinators will ruthlessly exploit the hesitation. One misread hand signal or 1 second of delayed rotation creates a gaping hole in the middle of the field. Coby Bryant has the coverage tools and the physical pedigree to be a stellar starter, but in Chicago, he is being thrust into the fire as a leader. He must transform from a cover guy into a tactical commander, proving he has the vocal authority and instant diagnostic processing required to anchor a secondary that has zero room left for error. Bleacher Nation. While the media spotlight burns white-hot on the open competition at safety, the ripple effect of this total back-end overhaul crashes hardest against the boundary, directly onto the shoulders of Jaylon and Tyrique Stevenson. Elite cornerbacks live on an island, but the stability of that island depends entirely on the tides around it. Under the old regime, Johnson, an all-pro technician whose smothering press-man coverage effectively deletes half the field, played with absolute, liberated confidence. He could jump quick slant routes, squat on intermediate outbreaking passes, and suffocate opposing top receivers precisely because he trusted Kevin Byard to protect his roof. Stevenson, a physical, aggressive second-year corner who thrives on jamming receivers at the line of scrimmage, built his game around that exact same safety net. But when you rip away experienced veteran safety help and replace it with a learning-on-the-fly rookie and a position convert, the perimeter corners are suddenly exposed to the elements, stranded in isolated single-coverage hell with zero margin for error. Every defensive coverage is a tied balance of give and take, and Dennis Allen's scheme demands that his boundary cornerbacks play aggressive, tight press coverage to deny easy timing throws. However, press coverage is inherently high risk. If a corner gets beaten off the line or gets caught guessing on a double move, he relies entirely on his safety to bracket the receiver over the top and save an explosive splash play. If Jaylon Johnson or Tyrique Stevenson feels even a split second of hesitation regarding whether Dillon Thieneman or Coby Bryant will reach their deep leverage markers, their technique changes instantly. Instead of striking with violent, confident hands at the line of scrimmage, a corner playing without safety, Trust opens his hips early, gives up cushion, and plays passively to protect against the deep ball. In an instant, Chicago's elite press coverage strength gets neutered by simple, unvoiced distrust in the deep middle of the field. The brutal reality of this systemic anxiety exploded into public view during high-intensity training camp practice sessions. With the tracking cameras zoomed in tight on the secondary, Caleb Williams, Chicago's explosive franchise quarterback, relentlessly stress-tested the new-look backend during 11-on-11 team drills. Operating out of heavy play-action setups, Williams repeatedly held the safeties in the middle of the field with his eyes before uncorking 50-yard deep shots down the boundary. In one viral, defining practice moment, a miscommunication between Coby Bryant and Thieneman on a post-wheel switch concept left Tyrique Stevenson completely stranded. Expecting bracket safety coverage over the top, Stevenson bit hard on the short route, only to watch Williams drop a dime down the sideline for a walk-in 70-yard touchdown. Practice film captured Stevenson immediately turning back toward the middle of the field, throw arms up in visible frustration as the secondary rushed into a tense, heated huddle to figure out who blew the coverage check. That single practice rep exposed the terrifying turning point of Chicago's high-stakes secondary transformation. When a corner cannot trust his safety, the entire defensive chain snaps. The cornerback stops trusting his eyes, the defense gives up quick, easy completions underneath to cushion the deep ball, and opposing offensive coordinators start smelling blood in the water. If Caleb Williams can expose these communication voids on a warm August afternoon in Lake Forest, veteran elite playmakers like Jared Goff and Jordan Love will systematically tear them apart in front of millions on national television. Jaylon Johnson and Tyrique Stevenson are elite cover talents, but even the best cornerbacks in football cannot survive on an island if the safety net behind them keeps fraying at the seams. The pressure is boiling over. The camp practice reps are slipping away, and Chicago's perimeter stars are left frantically praying that their new safety duo solves the puzzle before the real games begin. As the relentless heat of August training camp gives way to the unforgiving, hyper-focused spotlight of the regular season, the Chicago Bears find themselves standing at the absolute precipice of defensive immortality or catastrophic failure. General Manager Ryan Poles and Defensive Coordinator Dennis Allen have pushed all of their chips into the center of the table, engineering a radical overhaul that defies every conventional metric of modern NFL roster building. By severing ties with proven foundational veterans like Kevin Byard and Jaquan Brisker and handing the keys of a championship-caliber secondary to a converted free agent in Coby Bryant and a highly touted but completely untested rookie in Dillon Thieneman, Chicago has essentially removed the safety harness from a speeding roller coaster. There is no conservative middle ground left to occupy in this grand experiment. The defensive scheme is either a stroke of unparalleled visionary genius, or it is a self-inflicted disaster unfolding in real time in front of a ravenous fan base. On one side of the coin lies the ultimate defensive utopia, a scenario where the raw athleticism and unparalleled speed of this newly constructed backline completely transform Chicago into an impenetrable football fortress. If Dillon Thieneman's generational college tape accurately translates to the blinding speed of the professional game, the Bears instantly unlock a defensive ceiling they never could have reached with an aging veteran core. Imagine a defense where Thieneman becomes an absolute turnover machine, a single high eraser whose terrifying sideline-to-sideline range allows Dennis Allen to stack the box with linebackers, unleash relentless exotic blitz packages, and dare opposing quarterbacks to test the deep waters. If Coby Bryant seamlessly transitions into the vocal, intellectual leader of the secondary, perfectly disguising shell coverages and establishing that telepathic, non-verbal connection with his rookie counterpart, the entire geometry of the field dramatically changes. Jaylon Johnson and Tyrique Stevenson, freed from the paralyzing anxiety of blown bracket coverages, can return to suffocating elite receivers at the line of scrimmage, aggressively undercutting intermediate routes and completely neutralizing the potent passing attacks of their bitter NFC North rivals. In this timeline, the gamble pays off in spectacular highlight reel fashion, forging an aggressive, fast, and suffocating defensive unit that effortlessly propels Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears on a dominant, undeniable march toward the Super Bowl. However, the flip side of that same coin reveals a terrifying, catastrophic nightmare that could completely derail a carefully constructed championship window. The National Football League is an unforgiving, predatory ecosystem that brutally punishes arrogance and inexperience. And if this bold safety experiment fails to synthesize immediately, the resulting carnage will be absolutely impossible to hide. If Thieneman hits the proverbial rookie wall, if the complex, constantly shifting offensive schemes engineered by the likes of Detroit's Ben Johnson and Green Bay's Matt LaFleur consistently manipulate his eyes, freeze his feet with heavy play action, and exploit his aggressive downhill trigger, the structural integrity of the entire defense instantly collapses. A single moment of hesitation, a misread hand signal in a deafening stadium, or a failure to properly execute a pre-snap check between Bryant and Thieneman won't just result in a missed tackle. It will result in wide-open 70-yard bombs raining down on the deep boundary while cornerbacks trail helplessly in their wake. If the boundary corners lose faith in the deep middle and begin playing passive, soft coverage to protect themselves, the violent, aggressive identity of the defense completely disintegrates. Suddenly, a team with genuine championship aspirations will find themselves trapped in desperate weekly shootouts, bleeding 30 points a game to divisional rivals who have ruthlessly identified the fatal, bleeding flaw in Ryan Poles' master plan. Ultimately, the verdict on this radical secondary purge will not be written in the comfortable executive suites of Halas Hall, but on the frozen, unforgiving grass of Soldier Field when the margins for error shrink to absolute zero. You cannot hide a safety in the modern NFL. They are the absolute last line of defense, the ultimate guardians standing between a gritty victory and total systemic failure. Ryan Poles has stared directly into the void of the salary cap, discarded the trusted, proven commodities of the past, and constructed a secondary built entirely on the explosive, terrifying promise of youth and pure speed. As the final weeks of preparation slip away and the looming threat of the regular season arrives, the football world watches with bated breath to see if the back end will hold. The Chicago Bears have engineered the most daring, high-stakes defensive gamble in recent franchise history, and the final outcome will decisively dictate the legacy of this front office regime, either crowning them as the fearless, visionary architects of a modern dynasty, or damning them as the arrogant engineers of their own spectacular demise.